welcome back to my channel. I've been wanting to film this video for a while. This is going to be about my trying to conceive or TTC journey with my daughter. If you don't already know, I have one daughter. Her name is Noriel, and she just turned 2 about a month ago. So I wanted to film this video because I just wanted to let other women out there know who've experienced this, that they are not alone, and I feel like women don't talk about this enough. So I just wanted to share my story in hopes that, it could help someone out there. I wanted to talk about this strictly from my perspective, my experience. Obviously, my husband also went through this with me, but I don't want to speak for him, so I'm going to be talking about this, from my perspective. So I had my IUD removed back in May, at the end of May in 2016, and at that point, Frank and I were not actively trying, but we also weren't preventing. I pretty much got pregnant right away. I got my first positive pregnancy test on July 9th, and we were extremely shocked, first off, that it happened right away, and we were so excited. And I remember this pretty vividly, but a week after I had gotten the positive pregnancy test, I went to visit my sister to see my nieces because she had just had my second niece probably like 2 weeks before that. And so I was there visiting her, and I had told her that I was pregnant, and she was so excited for me. And then later on that evening when I got home, I had started spotting. So immediately, I went straight to Dr. Google, and I was trying to figure out what was going on, and I read that it can be normal to spot early on in pregnancy, so I was, trying not to worry myself. As the night went on, I started spotting, a little bit heavier and heavier, so I had texted my sister and asked her what she thought I should do, and she said, it wouldn't hurt to just go to the ER and get everything checked out to make sure everything is okay. So Frank and I ended up going to the ER, and I had told them that I was around 5 weeks along and that I was spotting, and I didn't know why. So, they proceeded to put me in a room and send in an ultrasound technician to give me an ultrasound and take a look at what was going on. So I forgot to mention that when we first got there, I did have my blood drawn so that they could check my hormone levels. So the HCG hormone is the hormone that you have when you are pregnant, and so I had that checked at the beginning. I think, it's the ultrasound tech's job to not really say much or give any inclination as to what is happening. So I was trying to look at her face and get a sense of, what she was seeing, but, she didn't really give much of anything, and the screen was pretty much just facing her the whole time. So after an hour after the ultrasound, he came in to kind of review the results with me and basically said that, they couldn't really see anything in the ultrasound, and my HCG levels were 100, which were really, really low. And he didn't specifically say the word, but I did read it in the discharge papers, and he kept apologizing, but the discharge papers did say that this is considered a missed miscarriage. So he didn't really know what that meant. Naturally, as we were leaving the hospital, I was just sobbing. I was extremely confused. I didn't really know what was going on just because he didn't really explain much of anything to me. He did suggest that I make an appointment with my gynecologist to try and get an understanding of, what went wrong. I pretty much took that week to process everything. I I was really upset, and it was just really, really hard to even hear that. You know, my first time ever getting pregnant, and it was a miscarriage. So I did make that appointment about a week later to go see my gynecologist to discuss what had happened, and she basically told me that it was a chemical pregnancy. And if you've never heard of that before, a chemical pregnancy is when the embryo never implants into the uterus. So your HCG levels start rising, you know, making you think that you're pregnant, but it never actually sticks, and then everything just passes. So it ends up being like a period, and that's why I was spotting. The doctor had said to me that because a chemical pregnancy is basically like having your period, that there was no risk if we wanted to try again right away. So after talking about it, you know, we both decided that we were pretty comfortable with trying again right away. So we did. So after that, I ended up getting pregnant again. I had my second positive pregnancy test on August 22nd. I will try to insert some pictures where I can, just to kind of show, you know, the different tests that I took. Yeah, because of the fact that I went through that with my first pregnancy, this second pregnancy, I was pretty obsessive about testing often. So I would take a pregnancy test like almost every morning or every other morning when I could, to try and make sure that my line was getting darker, because I had read when I had the chemical pregnancy that you could take a pregnancy test and it would look dark, and then days after that it would start to get lighter. But when I had my chemical pregnancy, it never got lighter, or at least not until I was spotting, and then, you know, it was negative. So I kept testing when I got pregnant again to make sure that my line was getting darker, because I was paranoid. But it was getting darker and darker, and, you know, there was really no signs that anything, you know, was going wrong or anything like that. So I started allowing myself to get a little bit excited. I don't know if it's like this everywhere, but in our area, when you get a positive pregnancy test, they will let you have your first appointment, your first OB appointment at 8 weeks. But the way it worked out with the timing, I was 7.5 weeks along when I had this first OB appointment, where I got my first ultrasound and could confirm the pregnancy. So when I got that appointment, I had explained to the doctor that I had experienced, you know, a very early miscarriage, which was the chemical pregnancy, and she had told me, you know, we'll see, you know, what's going on with this pregnancy, and we'll go from there. So I had my ultrasound, and she had the screen facing her at first, and then as she was about to turn it towards me, for some reason I just had a bad feeling, and that bad feeling was right, because as she showed me the screen, you could see that there was a sac, but there was nothing inside the sac, and there was a little dot on top of the sac. It almost kind of looked like a diamond ring. And yeah, she pretty much said to me, you know, maybe you got your dates wrong, maybe you're not as far along as you thought. So she gave me two options. She said that I could come back in about a week to have another ultrasound to see if I've progressed any, or I could have my blood drawn that day and then have it drawn 2 days later to see if my HCG levels were rising, because when you're pregnant in the very early stages, they're supposed to be doubling every 2 days. So I went with that option. I asked to have my blood drawn, and then 2 days later I came back and had it drawn again. So after I had it drawn the second time, I don't remember if it was that day or a day or so later, but the nurse called me and she told me that, yeah, it was not a viable pregnancy, and, you know, it was going to be another miscarriage. Except this time, since my body was not recognizing that it was a miscarriage, I would have to have a D&E procedure, which stands for dilation and evacuation, to have the embryo as well as the tissue removed. You know, naturally, this was extremely hard to hear. Again, you know, my first 2 times getting pregnant, and they both resulted in miscarriages. And, you know, obviously I'm talking about this now and I'm able to talk about it, but at the time, you know, it was really, really hard. I cried a lot, you know, and it was not easy to stay positive and keep at it because of the fact that this pregnancy ended up in needing a D&E. The doctor said that I would have to wait at least 1 month before we tried again, which was completely fine. I wanted my body to heal, and I wanted to kind of take that time to get to know my body a little bit more. So I actually ended up purchasing ovulation predictor strips from Amazon. So they're just these little strips. They're urine tests, and you do them twice a day to determine when you ovulate. So you will typically start a few days before you think you're supposed to ovulate, and then you'll test twice a day to try and catch the window of when you're ovulating. And during this time, I was able to figure out that I had a longer cycle than the normal 28 days. I actually have a cycle that is anywhere from 34 to 38 days. So, you know, that makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of plan around when to try to conceive. And so doing that was able to really, really help. And once November rolled around, we were ready to start trying again, and I did end up getting pregnant a 3rd time, which was my pregnancy with Noriel. So that one did work this time, and because I had the 2 miscarriages before that pregnancy, I was able to have the doctor test my HCG levels right away. So on, I think it was December 19th of 2016, I had my first HCG levels tested, and then 2 days later I had them tested again, and they were doubling. But in that first blood test, they did see that my progesterone levels were kind of low. So they didn't want to take any chances, and they started me on progesterone pills. Now, the reason why they were so quick to give me the progesterone pills was because in my 2nd pregnancy, when they were testing my HCG levels, they did see that my progesterone was low there, and I had asked the doctor if that could have anything to do with the fact that I was having miscarriages, and she kind of said that there was no real proven way to tell if that was the issue or not, but she said taking the progesterone pills is really not going to hurt anything. She gave me that prescription, and I took those through to, I think, about 12 weeks, and I can't say for sure if that's what helped me sustain the pregnancy, but I am pretty much a believer that it did. And on January 12th of 2017 was when I had my first ultrasound, and I did hear the heartbeat for the first time, and that was the best sound that I ever heard. And I was crying tears of joy because, you know, after what we had gone through, I just wasn't sure what a 3rd pregnancy and a 3rd ultrasound was going to show me. And when I heard that heartbeat, I just sobbed because I was extremely excited that, you know, it felt more real this time, you know, hearing something and seeing something on the ultrasound. So yeah, that was pretty much my journey trying to conceive my daughter. And the one thing that I did want to mention is throughout this whole process, I did end up downloading an app called Baby Bump. It's actually not up and running anymore. I think they shut it down like at some point last year, but I did have that app, and I was a part of a discussion board called TTC After Miscarriage, I believe, and I met a girl through there, and I actually still talk to her today, and she was one person that would often comment on the posts that I was sharing. You know, you can just pretty much say like what you're experiencing, and people will comment back and say if they're experiencing the same thing. And it was the one place that I could openly talk about what I was going through, and other women would, you know, tell me if they were experiencing the same thing. And it was just a way for me to really not feel lonely in what I was experiencing, because, you know, no matter how many of my friends and family members I talked to, I could never really feel not alone in this, just because no one was experiencing it at the same time that I was in my, you know, circle of friends and my family. So it really helped me out a lot to be part of that group and able to talk to some women out there who were going through it as well. That was one major thing that helped me cope, as well as, you know, the support from my husband and, you know, family and friends. But I think that's all I wanted to cover in this video today. I will eventually also post a video about my pregnancy journey as well as my birth story. So if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on your bell notifications so you don't miss when I post that video, as well as any other upcoming videos. If you guys have any questions about my experience or what I did to try to conceive, if you guys are having issues trying to conceive, go ahead and feel free to leave those questions in the comment section. You know, I know that there are plenty of women who go through this, and there are other women who have definitely had it, you know, harder than I have. And, you know, I just want you guys to feel like you're not alone and other women are experiencing this. So I hope this helped you in some way, shape, or form, because I know it helped me to kind of look up videos like this and hear about it from other women as well. So thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.